She pretended to be ugly to escape the Alpha King, but he still chose her as his Luna. In a kingdom where beauty was both a blessing and a curse, she had learned early that the eyes of men, especially powerful men, could weigh like chains. From the moment she first glimpsed her reflection in a forest stream as a child, she understood. Her beauty could not be free. It would draw attention she did not want, attention she could not control. And so, Alara had chosen a life of hiding. With a whispered spell she had learned in secret from an old village crone, she had altered her appearance. Her once luminous hair was now a dull brown, her clear eyes clouded with a haze, and her graceful features disguised under shadows that softened her beauty. She walked among the villagers as one of them, unremarkable, unnoticed, and yet within her heart she burned with the same fire that had always been there, bold, curious, and unyielding. The village she called home was small, nestled at the edge of the shadowed forest, far from the golden towers of the capital where King Kalen ruled. The villagers were simple folk, wary of magic and of the tales whispered about the Alpha King. They spoke of him as one might speak of a storm, a force to respect, feared, and yet strangely admired. They said Kalen was powerful beyond measure, a ruler whose gaze could pierce the soul. But it was not power that drew Ilara's attention. It was the stories of his loneliness, the sadness hidden beneath the strength, a heart bound by curses and past betrayals. Ilara had never wished to meet the king. Her life, though simple, was enough. She tended her small garden, walked in the forest, and helped the villagers with their daily tasks. Yet fate, as always, had a way of finding those who tried to hide. It began with the rumors. A shadow had fallen over the kingdom. Crops were failing, strange creatures were seen at night, and whispers of dark magic spread through the villages like wildfire. The court demanded answers, and the king's advisors spoke of prophecies and curses long forgotten. The villagers trembled at the mention of Kalen's name, but Alara listened with cautious interest. There was more to these tales than the simple fear of men in power. The balance of magic, she knew, was delicate. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the forested hills and painted the sky in shades of violet and gold, a stranger arrived in the village. He was clad in a cloak the color of midnight, and his presence carried an authority that made even the bravest villager bow slightly. He did not speak immediately, only observed the villagers as though weighing them with unseen scales. When his eyes settled on Alara, she felt a shiver run down her spine. She kept her gaze low, refusing to meet him. "You are Alara," he said, his voice deep and steady. "The one who hides her face from the world." Alara's heart skipped a beat. How could he know? She had been careful for years, hiding her beauty under magic and shadow. She stepped back instinctively, her palms sweaty. I am just a villager," she said, her voice trembling despite her attempt at calm. The man tilted his head, studying her. "A villager, perhaps, but I see the fire in your eyes, the courage you try to hide. I am Kalen, king of this land, and I have come for you." Her breath caught. King Kalen, the Alpha King. The very name carried the weight of legends, of fear, and of power beyond imagining. She had dreamed, sometimes in the quiet of the night, of meeting him, not because she wanted to be his Luna, as the stories said, but because she wondered if he, too, carried the loneliness of being feared, misunderstood. Yet she could not let herself be found. Not now, not ever. I cannot go to the palace," she said, her voice firmer now. "I am no one, you should leave." Kalen's eyes darkened, but there was no anger in them, only a quiet determination that unsettled her. "You are no one by your own choice, but destiny has other plans." Alara's mind raced. She had to leave, to escape. The forest, the village, anything to put distance between herself and him. She began walking toward the edge of the trees, hoping to vanish into the shadows. But Kalen followed, silent, unhurried, yet always there like a storm closing in. "You can hide your face," he said, his voice calm, almost gentle. "But you cannot hide your soul. I see it even under this spell." Her heart pounded. She had never heard such words directed at her. Fear mingled with a strange thrill, an ache she could not name. She wanted to run, to resist, yet part of her longed to be seen, truly seen. The days that followed were a careful dance. Kalen did not demand her surrender, but his presence was constant. He observed her as she moved through the village, tended to her garden, and walked in the forest. He asked questions, gentle but probing, about her thoughts, her fears, her dreams. He never pressed her, yet every word, every glance, seemed to strip away the walls she had built around herself. Alara's fear began to shift, slowly, into something else. There was curiosity, yes, but also a quiet admiration for the man who did not need to control, who did not try to dominate her with force, but who saw her as she truly was. Yet she knew the danger. If he knew the truth about her beauty and her lineage, she would be bound to him in ways she was not ready to accept. One evening, under a sky painted with the silver light of the moon, Kalen led her to the edge of the forest. The trees whispered secrets and the air shimmered with magic. He paused, turning to face her. "Alara," he said softly, "I do not seek to harm you, but you must understand the kingdom is in peril. Dark forces stir, and I need someone with courage, wisdom, and strength by my side. Someone I trust." Her breath caught. He did not say he wanted her beauty, her charm, or her obedience. He wanted her heart, her mind, her spirit, and that terrified her. I am not ready," she whispered. "I cannot leave this place." Kalen stepped closer, his shadow falling over her, yet not with menace but with a weight of inevitability. "You are ready, even if you do not believe it. I see who you are. The rest of the world may not, but I do. And I will not turn away." For the first time in years, Alara felt the walls she had built crumble. Not completely, not yet, but the cracks appeared. She wanted to run, yes, but also to stay. The night deepened, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Kalen extended a hand, not to command, but to invite. The fire in his eyes mirrored the fire in hers, and for a moment the world narrowed to just the two of them, standing at the edge of the forest, poised between fear and longing, destiny and choice. I cannot," she said again, shaking her head, though her fingers twitched, aching to reach for his. Kalen did not push. He only nodded, a quiet understanding in his expression. "Then I will wait," he said. "But know this, Alara, hiding cannot last forever. The kingdom, the world, even your own heart will find a way to bring you to me, whether you wish it or not." She looked down, her heart pounding, a mix of fear, longing, and confusion. She wanted to flee, yet every instinct told her that the path ahead, however terrifying, was not one she could avoid. The moon rose high, silver and cold, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Kalen watched her for a moment longer, then turned and walked away, leaving her alone with her thoughts, her fears, and the quiet, undeniable truth that her life had changed forever. Alara sank to the forest floor, breathing heavily, trying to steady her racing heart. She had hidden for so long, yet now she realized that hiding was no longer enough. The world and Kalen had found her. And somewhere deep within, a small, stubborn part of her wondered if perhaps, in the depths of her fear and her caution, she had been waiting for him all along. As the first hints of dawn touched the sky, she made a silent promise to herself. She would survive, she would protect her secret, and she would not allow herself to be bound. Not yet. But even as she spoke the words, she knew destiny had other plans, and that the Alpha King, with eyes that saw through shadows and lies, would not be deterred. And so, Alara's journey began, not in the grand halls of the palace, but here, at the edge of the forest, in the quiet tension between fear and fate, hiding her beauty, yet feeling the stirrings of a connection she could neither name nor deny. The kingdom waited, the darkness stirred, and the Alpha King watched, patient, certain, and unyielding. The castle of King Kalen rose like a shadowed mountain at the heart of the kingdom. Its towers reached high, crowned with silver battlements that gleamed in the sun, yet beneath the glittering surface lay halls of cold stone, whispering corridors, and secrets that even the bravest knights feared to speak of. For Kalen, the Alpha King, this fortress was not merely a palace. It was a symbol of his power, his solitude, and the weight of destiny that bound him. Alara had never imagined stepping within such walls. Yet here she was, guided by the quiet insistence of Kalen's invitation, her heart a mixture of fear and reluctant curiosity. The villagers had begged her to stay, warning her of the dangers of the palace, the Alpha King, and the court's endless whispers. But Alara knew she could not turn away. The darkness that threatened the kingdom was growing, and Kalen's summons had a purpose that went beyond titles or power. She walked with her head low, her plain appearance masking the beauty she kept hidden beneath layers of magic. Her hands trembled slightly as she passed through the grand doors, the scent of burning torches mingling with the cold stone air. Servants and guards glanced at her with polite curiosity, some whispering, but none dared question her presence. Kalen awaited her in the throne room, standing before a throne carved from obsidian and moonstone. His presence filled the space, commanding it without raising his voice. When he turned to look at her, Alara felt her breath catch. Despite her disguise, he regarded her with the same intensity as before, eyes that seemed to pierce through walls, shadows, and falsehoods, right into the core of her being. "Do not be afraid," he said, his voice calm, yet carrying a weight that made her instinctively straighten. "You are safe here for now, but you must understand the path ahead will not be easy." Alara swallowed, her fingers curling around the folds of her cloak. "I am not ready, I am not meant for this place," she admitted, her voice small. Yet even as she spoke, she felt a spark of defiance stir within her, a fire that refused to be hidden entirely. Kalen stepped closer, his movements deliberate, graceful, yet imbued with the power that earned him both respect and fear. "No one is meant for what destiny chooses," he said softly, "and yet some are chosen because of who they are, not because of what the world wants them to be. That is why I asked for you, Alara." She looked up at him, surprised by the earnestness in his eyes. It was not command she saw there, but recognition, as if he had glimpsed the part of her she hid even from herself. A mix of fear and longing surged within her chest. She wanted to speak, to ask why, to deny him, but the words caught in her throat. The following days tested her in ways she had never expected. Kalen did not impose cruel trials, nor did he demand blind obedience. Instead, he challenged her spirit, her courage, and her mind. He led her into the palace's hidden libraries, where books of ancient magic and forbidden knowledge lay untouched. He guided her through shadowed halls, teaching her to read the signs of the world around her, to sense the subtle currents of danger, and to understand the responsibilities that came with power. Alara learned quickly, though not without mistakes. She stumbled over riddles of ancient spells, misread symbols in the texts, and occasionally angered Kalen with her stubborn pride. Yet he never punished her. Instead, he guided her patiently, correcting her mistakes with a calm authority that left her simultaneously frustrated and intrigued. "You are clever," he said one evening as they studied a map of the forest surrounding the kingdom. "But cleverness alone will not protect you. Courage, intuition, and trust, these are just as important, and sometimes knowing when to surrender is as valuable as knowing when to fight." Alara frowned, her hands brushing over the parchment. "Surrender?" she asked quietly. "I have spent my life avoiding surrender." "I cannot, I will not." Kalen held up a hand, not in dismissal but in understanding. "You misunderstand me. Surrender does not mean weakness. It means seeing the truth of a situation and accepting it so that you may act with wisdom, not fear. This is what makes a Luna strong." A chill ran down her spine at his words. Luna. The title carried weight, expectation, and danger, yet hearing it spoken so calmly, almost reverently, made her heart flutter in ways she could not name. She wanted to run, yes, but a part of her wanted to stay, to learn, to face, to rise. Days turned into weeks. Alara's routine became entwined with the palace's rhythm. She practiced skills she had never imagined needing, tracking the signs of magic, understanding the nuances of diplomacy, even learning the subtle ways of sword and bow. Yet all the while, she felt Kalen's presence like a constant shadow, not threatening, but impossible to ignore. One night, under the glow of a pale moon, Kalen led her into the forest that bordered the castle. The trees whispered with ancient secrets, and the air shimmered with a magic older than the kingdom itself. He stopped at a clearing, where the silver light touched the mossy earth, and turned to face her. "Alara," he said softly, "tonight you will face your first trial alone." Her pulse quickened. Alone? What trial? Kalen's eyes, dark and piercing, met hers. "The forest holds many things that seek to test those who enter it. You will walk through the clearing, follow the path, and return with what you discover. Trust in yourself. Trust in what you have learned." Alara nodded, swallowing the fear rising in her chest. She stepped forward, feeling the soft moss beneath her feet, the whispering wind guiding her path. Shadows moved among the trees, strange shapes that seemed alive with intent. Her heart hammered, yet she forced herself to stay calm, remembering Kalen's lessons: courage, intuition, trust. As she walked deeper into the forest, a sudden rustle made her stop. A figure emerged from the shadows, a wolf, larger than any she had ever seen, with eyes that glowed like molten gold. She froze, remembering the stories of Kalen's forest, the creatures that tested the brave, and the spirits that guarded hidden truths. The wolf stepped closer, its gaze fixed on her. Fear surged, yet she did not run. Instead, she stood tall, recalling the calm strength Kalen had taught her. Slowly, she extended a hand, her voice steady. "I mean no harm." The wolf's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly, and it circled her once before disappearing into the shadows. Alara exhaled, her body trembling with relief and exhilaration. She realized that she had faced the forest's trial not with weapons or force, but with trust in herself, and that was the true test. Returning to the clearing, she found Kalen waiting. His expression was unreadable, yet when he spoke, there was a hint of approval in his voice. "You have done well. Courage and wisdom are not always found together, but tonight you have shown both." Alara felt a flush of pride, though it was mingled with a new, unfamiliar feeling, a longing. She wanted his approval, his recognition, his presence. The fear that had kept her hidden all these years began to shift, replaced by something dangerous, exhilarating, and forbidden. Why do you see me this way?" she asked, unable to stop the words. "I am not special, not worthy of your attention." Kalen stepped closer, the silver moonlight casting shadows across his face. "You are worthy, Alara, not because of what you are, but because of who you are. Courage, spirit, loyalty, these are rarer than beauty, rarer than power, and you possess them in abundance." Her heart skipped a beat and she looked away, unable to meet the intensity of his gaze. A storm of emotions raged within her: fear, longing, curiosity, and a strange sense of destiny. She wanted to run, to hide, yet she also wanted to stay, to learn, to trust. As they returned to the castle, the quiet tension between them lingered, unspoken but palpable. Every glance, every gesture carried weight, and Alara found herself questioning the boundaries she had set for herself. Kalen was no longer merely a figure of authority or fear. He was a presence that stirred her heart, challenged her mind, and tempted her spirit. But the court was a dangerous place. Whispers of her presence, her talents, and her growing closeness to the king began to spread. Some looked with envy, others with suspicion, and all watched for a reason to strike. Alara knew that her trials had only begun. She could face the forest, the beasts, and the magical tests, but navigating the politics, jealousy, and hidden dangers of the palace required a courage she had never before needed. Yet even amidst the uncertainty, one truth became clearer with each passing day. Kalen's interest in her was no fleeting curiosity. He saw her, truly saw her, and that recognition was both terrifying and intoxicating. She had hidden for so long, yet here was a man who could see through her illusions, through her disguises, and still choose her. And she realized, with a mixture of fear and wonder, that perhaps, no matter how much she tried to hide, destiny would not allow her to remain invisible forever. The moon rose high over the castle that night, silver light spilling across the towers and gardens. Within the palace, the Alpha King and the hidden beauty who had captured his attention stood on the precipice of a journey neither could fully understand. The forest, the kingdom, and the magic that bound them all waited, holding its breath for what would come next. And in the quiet of the night, Alara felt a shiver of anticipation, knowing that her life had changed forever, and that the Alpha King's pursuit had only just begun. The castle felt colder than usual that evening, though the torches burned bright along the stone corridors. A restless wind whispered through the towers, carrying the scent of storms brewing in the mountains beyond. Alara walked beside Kaelin through the echoing halls, her heart beating with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The Alpha King had requested her presence in the inner chambers, a place few had the privilege or the courage to enter. Alara's steps were quiet, yet each one felt heavy, as if the weight of the kingdom and its secrets pressed down upon her. Kaelin's gaze was unwavering, dark and intense, and she could feel the pull between them growing stronger with each passing moment. It was no longer just the thrill of his presence. It was something deeper, something almost impossible to name. "You have grown stronger," Kaelin said quietly, breaking the silence. His voice carried that calm authority she had learned to respect, and yet there was something softer in it tonight, almost vulnerable. "But strength alone will not be enough for what comes next." Alara glanced at him, curiosity and concern mingling in her eyes. "What do you mean?" Kaelin paused at a tall, arched doorway. Beyond it lay a chamber shrouded in shadow, the air tinged with the smell of old magic and earth. He opened the doors slowly, revealing a space filled with ancient relics, scrolls, and artifacts whose origins were older than the kingdom itself. "This," he said, stepping aside, "is where the truth waits, where the past, the present, and the future collide." Alara stepped inside cautiously, her eyes wide. The room seemed alive, humming with energy she could feel but not see. In the center stood a pedestal, and atop it lay an old, ornate mirror framed in silver and etched with symbols she did not recognize. Kaelin's gaze softened as he watched her approach it. "What you see here is not merely a reflection. It is a truth that has long been hidden, a curse that has shaped the fate of this kingdom and the life of its Alpha King." Alara shivered, though the room was not cold. "A curse," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "What kind of curse?" Kaelin's expression darkened, shadows flickering across his face in the torchlight. "Long ago, an enemy of my house cursed the lineage of the rulers of this kingdom. Any Luna who joined me without pure will, without courage and loyalty, would bring sorrow and misfortune. That is why I have been alone for so long, because I could not risk another's heart being trapped by fate." Alara's chest tightened. She had known there was danger in accepting his invitation, but she had not imagined such a burden. "And if someone with pure heart came?" she asked cautiously. "Then the curse would break," Kaelin replied softly, his voice tinged with hope he had not allowed himself to feel for centuries. "But the choice must be made willingly, from the heart, without fear or deceit." Alara's thoughts swirled. She thought of her hidden beauty, the illusions she had cast, the walls she had built around herself to protect her heart. Could she ever reveal herself fully, knowing the risk? Could she trust that Kaelin's choice of her was not just duty or destiny, but desire, understanding, and genuine connection? Her fingers brushed the mirror, and she felt a tremor run through her. The glass shimmered, showing not her disguised appearance but her true self, radiant, powerful, and undeniably beautiful. For a moment she could not breathe. The illusion she had relied on for so long had been stripped away by a mere reflection. Kalen stepped closer, his presence warm yet overwhelming. You cannot hide from the truth forever, Alara. I see you, not the shadows, not the disguise, not the fear. I see you. Alara's heart raced. She wanted to deny it, to retreat, but the pull between them was too strong. I don't know if I can, she admitted, her voice trembling. I am afraid of what might happen, afraid of being bound by a fate I cannot control. Kalen's eyes softened and he reached out, gently touching her arm. The contact was light, yet it sent a shiver down her spine. Fear is natural. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. And I trust you to make your own choice. The room seemed to grow smaller, the torches flickering as if the very air held its breath. Alara's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, emotions, and longing. She wanted to flee, to hide, yet every instinct in her body told her to stay, to trust, to believe. Kalen, she began, her voice soft, almost a whisper. Why me? Why not someone else? Kalen's gaze met hers, steady and unwavering. Because I see you. Not as the world sees you, not as a ruler sees a subject, not as a man sees a woman, but as someone whose heart can stand beside mine, whose spirit can face the darkness with me. You are rare, Alara, and I cannot ignore what I see. Her chest tightened with a mixture of fear and longing. The words were both terrifying and intoxicating. She wanted to believe him, to let herself feel the connection that had been building for weeks, yet her past, her habit of hiding, whispered caution. Before she could speak again, a sudden disturbance rippled through the air. The torches flickered violently, and the shadows in the room seemed to shift unnaturally. A chill ran down Alara's spine. Dark magic, Kalen said, his voice low and urgent. Someone seeks to interfere with the bond between us, to claim what should not be theirs. Alara's heart pounded. What can we do? She asked, her fear now mingled with determination. Kalen's hand found hers, gripping it firmly. We face it together. But you must trust me and yourself. The world outside the castle seemed to darken as they stepped into the courtyard, where the first whispers of the threat became visible. A shadowy figure moving among the trees, its presence unnatural, malevolent. Kalen's power flared, a controlled storm of strength and skill that made even the bravest guards step back in awe. Alara's pulse raced, but she did not flee. Instead, she drew upon the lessons Kalen had taught her, the courage she had honed through trials, and the instincts that had kept her safe in the forest. She moved beside him, alert, ready, and aware. The shadow drew closer, revealing itself as a figure cloaked in darkness, with eyes that glowed faintly in the moonlight. Alara could feel the malice emanating from it, the power that sought to disrupt everything Kalen and she had begun to build. You should not have come here, the figure hissed, voice like dry leaves scraping across stone. This bond is not yours to claim. Kalen's hand went to the hilt of his sword, but he did not strike immediately. His eyes remained on Alara, silently asking if she was ready. She nodded slightly, and in that moment something shifted. Together they faced the threat, moving as one. Kalen's strength and precision were unmatched, yet Alara's courage and quick thinking were equally vital. She anticipated the figure's moves, guided Kalen with subtle gestures, and found openings he could exploit. The dance of power, magic, and trust was intricate, almost terrifying in its intensity. Finally, with a burst of combined strength, the figure was driven back into the shadows, disappearing as suddenly as it had appeared. The air calmed, the torches burned steadily again, and the courtyard was quiet, save for the heavy breaths of the two who had faced danger side by side. Alara's heart raced, her body trembling, but a new sense of understanding settled over her. She had faced fear, magic, and the unknown, and she had not fled. She had stood beside Kalen, not as a hidden beauty, not as a shadow, but as herself. Kalen lowered his sword and turned to her, his expression unreadable yet soft. You have done well, he said quietly. More than well, you have shown me that trust and courage can break even the darkest spells. Alara's chest heaved. I don't know what to say, she admitted. You need not say anything, Kalen replied. Words are not always necessary when actions speak so clearly. For a moment they stood in silence, the moonlight casting silver shadows across the courtyard. Alara realized that the bond between them was no longer just a matter of destiny. It was built on trust, courage, and understanding. And in that realization, she felt a spark of hope, of something deeper, something that had nothing to do with magic or duty and everything to do with the heart. Yet even in this moment of triumph, a quiet tension lingered. The shadow that had attacked them was only a messenger, a warning of the dangers still to come. Alara knew that the trials were far from over, that the court, the kingdom, and the magic that surrounded Kalen would continue to test her. But for the first time she also knew this. She was no longer hiding. She had faced fear, revealed pieces of her true self, and stood beside the man who saw her for who she truly was. And that was only the beginning. As the wind whispered through the towers, carrying the scent of storms and shadows, Alara and Kalen returned to the castle, side by side. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and secrets, yet the bond between them had grown stronger, forged in courage, trust, and the quiet, undeniable pull of hearts beginning to see each other clearly. And in the quiet of the night, as the first hints of dawn touched the castle towers, Alara felt a new strength within her, a promise to face whatever came next, to trust Kalen, and perhaps to allow herself to finally embrace the connection that had drawn them together from the very beginning. The curse of the past lingered like a shadow, yet for the first time, Alara sensed that the light of courage, love, and choice could shine through even the darkest magic. And with that, the story of the Alpha King and the hidden beauty moved closer to a destiny that neither could fully predict, but both were beginning to hope would be theirs. The storm had been gathering for days, dark clouds rolling over the mountains and casting the kingdom in shades of gray. Even within the castle walls, the air felt heavy, charged with the tension of unseen forces. Kalen stood at the highest tower, his cloak whipping around him in the wind, his eyes scanning the distant horizon. Every instinct in his body told him that danger was approaching, danger not only to the kingdom, but to the fragile bond he had formed with Alara. She had insisted on accompanying him, despite his protests. "I am not a child to be hidden, Kalen," she had said, her voice firm yet trembling with unspoken fear. "I have faced fear before, and I will face it again with you if you allow me." Kalen had studied her for a long moment, the shadows of doubt and desire flickering in his dark eyes. Finally, he had nodded, realizing that her courage, spirit, and heart were as vital as any sword or spell he could wield. Together, they had prepared for what was to come, though neither could predict the exact nature of the storm or the enemies it would bring. The first sign of danger came at dusk, as the sky darkened beyond the natural fading of light. From the forest that bordered the kingdom, a shadow emerged, a figure cloaked in black, moving with unnatural grace. It was the same dark force that had first tested them weeks ago, stronger now, fueled by anger, magic, and determination to undo whatever bond Kalen and Alara had begun to forge. Alara's hand found Kalen's, their fingers intertwining instinctively. "I am ready," she whispered, her voice steady despite the rapid beat of her heart. Kalen's grip tightened around hers. "Then we face this together. Fear will not save you, but trust and courage will." They stepped forward into the courtyard, the wind tearing at their cloaks, lightning flashing across the sky, illuminating the ground in brief, silver bursts. The figure stopped, revealing a presence that seemed almost otherworldly, radiating a cold, oppressive energy. It was clear this was no ordinary enemy. It was a being connected to the curse that had haunted Kalen's lineage for centuries. "You should not have come," the figure hissed, voice like wind through dead leaves. "The bond between Alpha and Luna is not meant to exist." "I will see it broken," Kaelin's dark eyes narrowed. "It will not be broken," he said, voice firm. "Not now, not ever. Alara stands beside me, and together we will face whatever darkness you bring." Alara took a step forward, her heart racing but her mind focused. She had trained, learned, and grown in the weeks she had been at the castle. She could sense the magic surrounding them, the shifts in energy that indicated the enemy's movements. She raised her hand, letting the lessons Kaelin had taught her guide her actions. The figure attacked, swift and precise, weaving shadows and illusions to confuse and disorient them. Kaelin moved like a storm, powerful and precise, his sword striking with deadly grace. Alara dodged, countered, and assisted, using her awareness of the environment and her own latent power to create openings and protect Kaelin from attacks that could have struck him down. At one point, the enemy lunged toward Alara, a shadowy blade aimed at her chest. Time seemed to slow. Kaelin reacted instantly, intercepting the attack, but not before a small slash grazed her arm. Pain shot through her, but she did not falter. Her eyes met Kaelin's, and in that glance, an unspoken understanding passed between them. They would not be defeated, not by this force, not by fear. "You are strong," Kaelin said as he blocked another strike, his voice low but carrying admiration. "Stronger than I imagined. Do not doubt yourself now." Alara nodded, drawing on every ounce of courage within her. She raised her hand toward the shadowy figure, and a pulse of light, faint but pure, emanated from her fingertips. The light grew, fueled by her determination, her trust in Kaelin, and her acceptance of who she truly was. The figure hissed in pain, recoiling from the sudden brilliance. Kaelin seized the moment, his blade striking true, sending the enemy stumbling backward. Yet even as the figure fell, it whispered a chilling warning. "The curse is not yet broken," before vanishing into the night, leaving only a cold wind in its wake. Alara sank to her knees, breathing heavily, her arm throbbing where it had been grazed. Kaelin knelt beside her immediately, his hands gentle as he examined the wound. "It is shallow," he said softly, pressing a hand to her arm. "You are unharmed beyond this, and you were incredible." Her heart fluttered at his words, and a heat spread through her chest. I only acted because you were beside me," she whispered. "And that is why you succeeded," Kaelin replied, his dark eyes holding hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Not because of magic, not because of training, but because of your courage, your spirit, your heart. That is what makes you worthy." Alara looked down, trying to hide the rush of emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. She had spent so long hiding, fearing what others might see, fearing the consequences of being herself. But here, in the aftermath of battle, with the storm raging around the castle, she felt something she had never felt before: acceptance, trust, and a fragile, growing hope. Kaelin helped her to her feet, and together they returned to the inner chambers. The storm outside was fierce, lightning flashing across the sky, thunder shaking the towers, but within the walls of the castle, a quiet warmth enveloped them. Kaelin closed the doors behind them, shutting out the chaos, and turned to face her fully. "Alara," he said softly, stepping closer, "you do not need to hide anymore. Not from me, not from the world. I see you truly, completely. And I cannot ignore what I feel." Her breath caught. The words were simple, yet their weight was immense. She wanted to speak, to deny, to retreat, but her heart would not allow it. Instead, she took a step closer, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of fear, longing, and determination. I am afraid," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid of what it means, afraid of failing, afraid of being bound by the curse." Kaelin reached out, gently lifting her chin so their eyes met. "Fear is natural," he said, his voice calm and steady. "But it cannot control us. The curse, it is powerful, yes, but it does not define us. Together we can face it, and if we choose each other willingly, it will lose its power over our hearts." Alara felt tears prick at her eyes. She had spent so long hiding, pretending to be less than she was to survive. And now, in this moment, she realized she could be herself, fully, without fear of rejection, without illusions or shadows. She nodded, a quiet, firm movement that carried all the courage she had learned in the past weeks. "I choose to trust," she said softly. "I choose you." Kalen's eyes darkened, not with anger or intensity this time, but with something warmer, softer, and profoundly human. He stepped closer, closing the distance between them, and for a brief, suspended moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then he reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face, and whispered, "And I choose you, Alara, always." A calm light seemed to fill the room, the storm outside fading as if responding to the bond they had forged. The curse that had haunted the kingdom, that had kept Kalen isolated and fearful for centuries, loosened its grip, sensing the strength of their courage and the purity of their choice. Days later, the storm passed entirely, leaving the kingdom bathed in golden sunlight. Birds returned to the trees, rivers sparkled, and the air carried the sweet scent of renewal. The people of the kingdom sensed a change, though none could name it. The palace felt lighter, warmer, alive in a way it had not been for generations. Alara and Kalen walked together through the gardens, side by side. She no longer felt the need to hide, and he no longer felt the weight of solitude. The bond they had chosen to forge, built on trust, courage, and mutual respect, had transformed not only them but the kingdom itself. "Alara," Kalen said quietly, stopping beside a fountain that shimmered in the morning light, "you have changed everything. Not just for me, but for all of us. You have brought hope, courage, and light where there was only fear." Alara smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "We changed it together," she said softly. "You showed me I could be brave, and I showed myself that I could trust and choose and love without fear." Kalen took her hand in his, lifting it gently. "Then let us face the future together. No shadows, no curses, no fear, only us, side by side." She nodded, leaning slightly against him, feeling the steady strength of his presence. "Together," she whispered. And so, under the light of a new day, the Alpha King and his Luna stood at the heart of their kingdom, bound not by duty or fear, but by choice, courage, and love. The storms of the past had passed, the shadows had been faced, and the future stretched out before them, bright, uncertain, and entirely theirs to shape. For the first time in centuries, Kalen felt complete. And Alara, the girl who had hidden her beauty to survive, had found not only freedom but a place where she belonged, truly seen, truly loved, and truly chosen. The kingdom watched in quiet awe as the Alpha King and his Luna walked together through the golden light, a legend reborn, a love forged in courage, and a future that would never again be shadowed by fear. And in the hearts of both, a promise echoed: no matter what storms may come, no matter what shadows may rise, they would face them together, as equals, as partners, and as the Alpha King and his Luna.